25 years she's been providing breastfeeding updates to Colorado health professionals. And now this year, the Colorado, the Journal Club is now webcasted. So if you aren't aware of that, you can actually participate by webinar. It's not like being there, I have to tell you, but it is a way to hear the updates, the latest literature reviews. And you know, she's a clinical professor of pediatrics at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, a founding member of the Academy of Breastfeeding member, a co-founder of the Denver Mothers Milk Bank and the Human Milk Banking Association of North America. She's a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics section on breastfeeding and a Colorado chapter AAP member. And in addition to all her breastfeeding career, she's also developed a keen interest in positive psychology and is a motivational speaker who enjoys sharing empowering professional development messages for healthy business professionals, like health, business and health, I guess, professionals like you all. And so this morning she's going to inform us on strategies to help foster your ability to bring staff on board on your journey to becoming baby friendly. So let's welcome Marian Knightford.
Wonderful. Let's see if I can advance. Sorry, is there a simple way to advance it, or do I have to go to?
No, here, can you give me 1 second?
Yeah, okay, she's going to make it easier, okay. So, in the way of introduction, when Jennifer asked me to speak about staff buy-in, I realized, okay, I'm not in the trenches every day like you guys, but I have spoken at, I think, 36 hospitals around the state, and sometimes heard staff tell me things that they maybe wouldn't tell the folks at the round place, and then had the privilege of, I don't know how many states I've spoken on hospital policies, but I've spoken on breastfeeding in 48 states, so I've heard a lot of stories, and I've often had people tell me things afterwards like, well, I was against this initiative, but after this presentation, you know, I'm on board or whatever. And so I knew that there were a few things that I must be doing to help with getting staff buy-in. I wasn't 100% sure what those things were. And then I tumbled onto this book, and I agreed to do the talk, but I wasn't quite sure how I would put it together. And I love to read self-help books, basically. I have a son who's a psychiatrist, and so there's, you know, issues, but but this is a marvelous book, and I used it. Used the content of this book as a framework to talk about staff buy-in. So it's not the only framework; it's just a framework that I found my little ideas started to slot in nicely, and it might be something that you can spin off. It was just one of the most. You can tell how much I like a book by how many stickies are coming out of it, which is why I can't use a Kindle, because I'm a very kinesthetic reader. So this was about basically getting buy-in to make change happen. These Chip Heath and Dan are two brothers, and you can see their connections there. And they've also the authors of what was the other book that's on there?
Made to Stick.
Thank you, Made to Stick. Alrighty, so let's see if I can. I guess I'm going to have to do this each time, but that's okay. So they begin by talking about that philosophers and psychologists from really dating back to Plato, it talked about kind of, he didn't know left brain, right brain, but he talked about a rider trying to control a horse-drawn chariot, and trying to these conflicts between sort of the rational mind and the emotional mind, the left rational mind and the right emotional mind. The Heath brothers got their idea from, and I also love the happiness movement. There's a lot of great books there. So the happiness hypothesis was written by Jonathan Haidt, who was he's a psychologist at the University of Virginia, and he is author of this book. And he proposed this metaphor of the relationship between the emotional and the rational mind, the left and the right brain, and trying to accomplish change. And the metaphor he used was a rider perched atop this massive elephant. The rider is the rational mind, and the elephant is the emotional mind. So now we've got this relatively small rider and this enormous elephant, and this represents the ongoing duel between both of these aspects of how we make decisions. This is very simplistic, but if we think about the left brain, the rational mind, it has many benefits. We're able to think long term, plan ahead, direct things, analyze, deliberate. But the weaknesses of this rational mind is that also we can overanalyze, we can overthink, we can sort of get our wheels spinning and become indecisive. And we've heard of hospitals years ago before the 4D pathway that were on the baby-friendly journey for 10 years, so they just couldn't move ahead, but really had the concept that they wanted to do it. Then we have the, sorry, I better go back. Did I go ahead? Then we have the emotional mind. And the right brain, the emotional mind. Well, this is very instinctive. It's protective, passionate, energetic, loyal, hopeful. We have some great potential feelings here that we can use. But the problem with the emotional mind is that it can be lazy, it can be skittish, wants the quick payoff over the long-term reward. So it can be very difficult for the small rider to control and keep the elephant on the path long enough to get to where you want. So if I were to say this dilemma, how many of us have ever sort of slept in, eaten the double stuffed Oreo we weren't going to, skip the working out session, stop taking our Spanish lessons or piano lessons, or reverted to our familiar interactions that don't work very well in your primary relationships, even though you were planning to go forward with proper communication skills you've read about and heard about. So that's the dilemma, that our intentions are good, but this right brain can keep us from moving ahead in what we want to do. So if we think about the baby-friendly hospital journey, we've got the rider representing the rational mind that recognizes the benefits. Of course, we want to give the highest standards of breastfeeding maternity practices, but meanwhile, the emotional mind is saying, but this is the way we've always done it. This is what I know. This is what's familiar to me. And so we're going to have to do a lot to inspire the elephant side of our staff to move forward. Because anytime the big elephant and the diminutive rider disagree, guess who's going to win? The elephant is always going to win. So when change efforts fail, it's usually because we didn't engage staff members' emotional side. We didn't generate the passion to give us the momentum to go forward. So if we're going to get staff buy-in for the baby-friendly initiative, or for anything else, we have to recognize that our staff has both an emotional and a rational side. We have to appeal to both sides in our team members' minds. Certainly we need this deliberating rider to give the planning and the direction in order to make a change, but it's going to be the passion of the emotional right brain that's going to give the energy to drive this initiative forward and get things done. And the good news is, if we can engage both, a change comes rather easily. Now there's one more, so we've got a three-frame, and I'm going to offer you is a simplistic model, this three-frame three-part framework, I can do it, for making change. We're going to direct the rider and give the rider crystal clear, we got to give evidence and a clear destination of where we want to go. And then we have to motivate the elephant, get the staff, get in touch with their emotional side, and we'll talk in a minute about what do we want our staff to feel about this. And then there's one other thing I haven't mentioned. We can facilitate the baby-friendly journey by shaping the path. So the journey's easier if we look at some things we can do with the path. A lot of things that look like a people problem are really a situation problem. And if we can shape the path, we can now make change more likely no matter what's happening with the rider and the elephant. So, okay, we've got our left rational brain rider, our mammoth emotional elephant, and now we're in the path. So we're going to look at all three of these. And I hope as I do this, I'm just going to give a few examples for each. But I hope you can think for your own setting what might fit where, and you can be aware of this as you go about moving through the baby-friendly journey. So the authors use three main strategies for each of these overarching themes. So there's going to be three things that we can do to direct the rider, three things we can do to motivate the elephant, and three things we can do to shape the path. So with the rider, we want to make it real clear what the destination is. We're going to talk about scripting the critical moves and focus on specific behaviors rather than the big picture. Baby-friendly is way too big. We're just going to talk about one thing at a time that we're going to do. And everything has bright spots. We're going to focus on what's working and get more of what's working. So pointing to the destination. As I said, change is easier if you know where you're going. we're going for the baby-friendly designation. Okay, we want to get that final determination there. But one of the things that I noticed that I always did in my presentations, I would set the stage with the evidence. Why is breastfeeding important? What are the recommendations for breastfeeding? What is the evidence that supportive maternity practices improve breastfeeding outcomes? And that certainly was a key strategy for going around the state and presenting the Can Do 5. And so what is this evidence? And then what are the 10 steps? And then letting them know that there's lots of model policies they can get. This, I put this here, but this may be more of an emotional thing. It was really powerful in the last year to be able to tell hospitals that we only have 5 or 6% of all hospitals that are baby friendly, but here's the best kept secret. There's more than 637 hospitals on the path. This is on the brink of a mega trend. And that frames things a lot differently. You don't want to be left behind. For the administrators and stuff, we could use some of the evidence that why is this going to help your bottom line? That the chief reason, we can show evidence for that babies are readmitted. And these are the preventable readmissions that are not going to be compensated. And the chief thing is feeding problems and jaundice, and it's almost always a late preterm baby. So we can use some of this. Obviously, you know all the 10 steps, and we'll hear more about it. And that's part of what the rational mind needs to hear. But I think it's also nice for the rational mind to know that we have this 4D pathway, and that makes the destination much more clear than it was years ago. And again, you can talk to Baby Friendly and hear stories of people that really did spin their wheels for a long time until it was clarified how can you make this journey more simplified. So we're going to focus on the specific behaviors, the 4D pathway, and I think it helps staff to break it down into what are the key, and these are the key steps that have the strongest evidence that it's linked with exclusive breastfeeding in the hospital in long term. So immediate skin to skin is like an anchor step. That's a great place to start, and it's right when the baby's born, and it sets the stage it helps promote exclusive breastfeeding. The continuous rooming in is a key anchor one, and the pacifier. Recruiting step champions is a way to help direct the rider. Have somebody assigned to be a champion for each different step, and then that also improves buy-in because you have more people involved. So those are just some examples. Following the bright spots. One of the most inspiring things in this book was finding how people made daunting changes. The one I remember, and I forget the man's name, but his job was to go to Vietnam and find out how to make fewer babies have fail to thrive and malnutrition, and you could sit there and focus on massive change. How do you overcome poverty and clean water and access to good foods? But what he did was he found bright spots. In every village with the same level of poverty, there were always some children doing well. And so he went and interviewed those mothers and found out why are some babies doing well with limited nutrition, and it turned out these mothers are doing just a few things differently. Instead of 2 meals a day, they were giving 4 smaller meals, which malnourished children absorb better than the 2 larger meals. Secondly, they didn't have much to work with, but they sprinkled in a few vegetables. They sprinkled in a little piece of shrimp. And that addition to the rice made a huge difference. And thirdly, they didn't just put it in front of the children. They nudged them to finish. They interacted with them during the feedings. And so when he gathered those women together in each village and had them teach the other mothers and come have cooking classes, they're able to raise the level of children that were well nourished, no longer severely malnourished, simply with hardly any budget, and did it in 6 months by looking at the bright spots. And so you have bright spots that things are already going well in your hospital, like you're already doing the Can Do 5. And so focus on that. Maybe you have a certain clientele that arrive with a prenatal class, and you notice they're the ones to use less supplement. Maybe you notice that you've got a midwife that can do all of these things very well, or maybe there's a pediatrician that always examines the baby in the mother's room, but you can tap into what's working and build on that. But what about the Can Do 5? This was interesting to me. When I started talking to hospitals about the 5, I had made the observation for myself that years ago when I would talk about baby friendly around the nation, I would just see posturing. I would just totally see people and then kind of shut down, and there would be an attitude, we can't do that here. You don't know our CEO, you don't know our staff, you don't know our clientele. But when I started sharing the Can Do 5, people would turn to their colleagues and nod their head and say, we can do that, we can do that. And the idea of that was quite a bright spot for me, that we can tell hospitals you're already doing 5 of the 10. And guess what? In Colorado, everybody teaches demand feeding and pretty much teaches mothers how to latch, so you're further along than you think. One hospital in Oregon found a bright spot. They said they noticed that during the H1N1 epidemic back in 2009, when they had restricted visitation, their exclusive breastfeeding rates went up. And this opened their mind to say, wait a minute, if we could start having a quiet time and nap time, if we could do something to control this constant, block party in the postpartum room, this could help their breastfeeding. So that came from looking at a bright spot. There's so many bright spots associated with skin to skin, that babies self-attach, that formula feeding babies self-attach, that mothers that were going to pump and bottle feed due to a previous history of sexual abuse find the babies can self-attach and decide they could go ahead and breastfeed directly. But there's so many bright spots and inspiring stories. People are inspired by stories. At Hannibal Hospital in Missouri, Diane Bibb has given so many powerful presentations, but she talked about once they started doing skin to skin, they had fewer babies ever needing a hypoglycemia workup. They don't have, it's a very small community hospital with not high-risk babies, but fewer hypoglycemia workups. And somebody else at a large Denver hospital told me they seldom have a transient tachypnea baby go through the need to wean off oxygen after they've had skin to skin, so that was a real reward for them. Motivate the elephant. We've got to find the feeling. Knowledge isn't enough. They have to feel something. And a lot of people think that change happens because people analyze something, think something, and then they change. But the truth is, most change comes because you see something, you feel something, and then you change. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about growing your people and getting a sense of identity, changing the mindset from, well, we can't do that because all our mothers request supplement, or we can't, but the mindset that says we all can do better. And that's a whole interesting thing, because kids, they have a more open mindset until they get to about junior high, and then they say, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at basketball. I'm not, and we have to work with kids to say, if you study harder in math, you can raise your score. You may not, be Michael Jordan, but you can be a better player if you practice your moves. And that's a huge issue with a lot of people with a mindset. And our staff can get stuck in a mindset that says we just can't do that here. And then we're going to shrink the change and break down the change so it doesn't spook the elephant. So think about what you want your staff to feel. What staff would sometimes share with me is things like this. This was pushed on us. I felt devalued. I'm feeling overwhelmed with this. I don't feel they really understand what let me give you an example. I was in another state. I was at a breastfeeding conference, and I went around and met a few people before we started, and found a night nurse at a hospital who had her CLC and considered herself to be the go-to person at nights for breastfeeding. She was so insulted that nobody on the baby-friendly team had come to her and said, tell us about nights. What are the challenges? What have you learned? What can you help us to make this initiative be effective at night? She was so insulted by that and felt so devalued. She said to me, I'm dragging my feet on this. I'm opposing it. I'm going to be an obstacle. And it just blew my mind that somebody could be a breastfeeding advocate and say, I'm going to oppose it. But it really got me in touch with the idea that somehow the way it was presented was not generating the feelings that make the elephant move. Energized, hopeful, proud, creative, and so forth. So negative emotions narrow our focus. I'm either on board or I'm not. I'm either going to jump from the burning building or die. I get usually just two choices. But positive emotions build our creativity, our flexibility, our ingenuity. We start getting creative when we feel good about what's happening, and we find ways to solve things. So we got to find this feeling. And I think one of the things that I was doing that I didn't realize fit into this mold was I always tell the story. I like to tell a lot of stories. Of course, I talk too much, but I tell the stories. And so I show pictures, and I tell the skin-to-skin stories. And I try to get, I guess what I was doing was evoking a feeling of people hearing that story about skin-to-skin and feeling like, I want to be part of that. I want that to happen. We have evidence that prenatal education decreases requests for formula supplementation. So this is something we can talk about. Get in touch with, I love that conference. How many of you know that Denver's been having for almost 25 years a conference called something about why low-risk nurses make, why low-risk nurses make let's see, why nurses make low-risk care their high priority. Did anyone know that conference, the Low-Risk Nursing Conference? Why nurses make low-risk their high priority. Very inspiring thing. So why did they choose to work in this area? And I think we could talk about making a vision statement, a mission statement for your family birthplace, your mother-baby care. And I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to say where I was or what state I was in, but a young lady told me a story that baby was skin to skin. Her whole birth plan didn't work. She said, all I wanted was my skin to skin. She was very knowledgeable. So baby skin to skin, and it was 12:30 a.m., and it was a busy delivery day. And the nurse said to the woman, my job is a lot easier if I can just take the baby over here and do these checks. 45 minutes later, she brought the baby back and incidentally put a towel down, put the baby on the towel. Now, I think we could even use humor. Let's say we were to write a mission statement for our family birthplace or mother-baby unit. Mother-baby saying elsewhere, we're making the nurse's job easier is our highest priority. I think we can actually joke about things and make people see the absurdity of that, and that's not our mission statement. Our mission statement is, how I can make mother's breastfeeding easier. I'm going to give the highest evidence and standard of care. And another one that I think is very important is the clinical judgment. Many of you saw this picture. This is not the particular family. This is a picture I was able to get from Deb Smith at Northern Colorado Medical Center, where she gave that compelling presentation last year at the summit about doing skin to skin in the OR immediately post C-section. And it turned out that the reason this story it taps into a feeling was this was a baby that had a fatal birth defect and was going to die shortly after birth. And so the whole staff mobilized around making an exception to give skin to skin for this special family. And it was such a goosebump producing experience for everybody that they turned around and started making C-section immediate skin to skin the norm. And so it's stories like that, I think, that really capture people. So that, skin to skin, and how laid back breastfeeding as babies self-attach, and how that then leads to mothers, exclusive breastfeeding, and how hand expressing then improves milk supply later, and getting people really excited about these things. I always say, because people love it, they laugh, and I say, I heard from Karen Moore that Poudre Valley says, we now order these by the caseload. And, people are like, wow, let's try that. And images of how the block party, much as we want to welcome the baby into the community that loves it, how that can sabotage cue-based feeding and so forth. But I got to tell you, I put this slide up, and I can feel the tension change in the room. And when I put this slide up, and it should come early in the talk because, pacifier is number 9. But what I say is, I get it now. This is my grandbaby with a pacifier. I wasn't going to show this, but I get it, that all of these things sound black and white, but they're not black and white. They are gray. And I just go out on a limb and say, I understand that when you're with that single mother-baby care, in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, whatever it is, you're making the best judgment you can. And I say, look, one of us needed a pacifier at that moment, and it was, turned out to be the baby. But I think I can just feel the tension leave the room when I'm honoring them. And I suppose there's a risk that I'm honoring somebody to keep doing the wrong thing. But I think when you honor people, it's easier to make the change over towards, a clinical judgment that matches your own a little more. But I can just feel the tension leave the room when I make it clear that this, to me, isn't as clear-cut as it sounds. I understand every mother-baby care is different. Grow your people. We've got to have this growth mindset and a sense of identity. We want people to start thinking, what kind of person am I? What kind of situation is this? And what would a person like me do in a situation like that? And we want to transform that limiting belief from we can't do that to here. If others are doing it, we can do it too, and we can stay ahead of the curve. And look what we're already doing with our Best Award and so forth. I actually do the hospital mission statement and inspire them with that. Then we have to shrink to change. And the elephant gets spooked if it seems so overwhelming. So this, perhaps repeating here, but remind them they're already doing the 5. They're well on the path. The baby-friendly theme, borrow shamelessly. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Borrow shamelessly and share seamlessly. remind them formula isn't going to cost a lot. 90% of mothers already begin breastfeeding in Colorado. And if a milestone's too big, you can celebrate inch pebbles. And these small victories create positive momentum. And finally, in just a minute, I'll talk about shaping the path. We're going to tweak the environment to facilitate the desired change. We're going to build in action triggers that promote the habitual behavior so the rider doesn't get so taxed by constantly concentrating on the change. And then we're going to rally the herd because human behavior is contagious. So tweak the environment. What often looks like a people problem is really a situation problem. There's something that authors wrote about fundamental attribution error, like what kind of nurse would do that? It must be a character flaw. No, it's probably a situational thing. It's probably if we shape the environment, the default thing for her to do would be very different. And some of these I just heard recently from you, like Kathy Janoka telling me about at Memorial. They got more scales, put them on wheels so that every nurse could go into the room and weigh the baby in the room and not bring the babies into the nursery. That's a way to shape the environment to default to the change you want. Put pacifiers in the Pyxis system, or better yet, like Evans Army Community Hospital, they don't have any pacifiers. I guess the Army isn't buying them. So it simplifies it. The default mode gets a lot easier. Eliminate the well baby nursery. So now, rooming in becomes easier. Some people have told me for the training, if keeping track of everything is too hard, just have everyone do the same online course. Done. The tracking was all done that way. That's an option. People have talked about, I forget where it was, is getting prenatal consent for the use of donor milk so that it's less of an issue if you want to use it. Maybe I learned that from Kathy, so you're not doing all this need for starting from square one with education about it, but you're doing it prenatally. It's so, if I could do anything to improve prenatal education, it would be so valuable. Build the habits. This golden hour. If you have to record the length of time baby spends skin to skin, then you're probably going to default to skin to skin. I just came from a hospital in Oklahoma, and I love this. They call their quiet time cuddle time, and they play a lullaby over the loudspeaker as cuddle time is starting. And I'm bragging on this, and cuddle time is so awesome. And then what a wonderful name. And finally, they admit actually we got it from another hospital. But they play this lullaby, which tells the whole floor. And then they have a script, and the script announces, we're now starting cuddle time for the next 2 hours so the mothers can rest and feed their baby and rejuvenate and get some sleep. And then they have a script so if someone comes in the middle of cuddle time, the ward clerk can have the script right there. We're in the middle of cuddle time where mothers are resting and caring for their babies and breastfeeding. But if you'd like to interrupt her, and so far nobody, they don't interrupt. The script is worded so that people don't interrupt. You're already measuring exclusive breast milk feeding for the Joint Commission measure. The fact we need to document the use of formula makes us more likely to talk to a mother about it, so that because we know we have to do the documentation. And it's so important to reinforce every single step. I know I'm probably out of time, but let me just say a couple of wonderful things from, I can finish in a minute, from Hannibal Hospital in Missouri. They did so many wonderful things to, and it probably was inspiring the staff too. They had a Golden Breast Award that they enrolled staff, just staff buy-in by rewarding somebody and passing this little, I don't know whether it was an actual shape like a breast or what it was, but they said there was one pediatrician that was rather not on board. And one day at one of the weekly meetings, he said, "Who's getting the GBA today?" And they said, "The what?" And he said, the Golden Breast Award. Who's getting that? But the humor around that and the constant affirmations around who would get it for having done something special. They would do celebrations with having some chocolate. There were just lots of wonderful things. They had ban the bra. One of their biggest obstacles of skin to skin was the moms wearing the bra. So they had all these ban the bra signs so that we get the bra off early in labor so mom's all ready for skin to skin. But I think there was, and then they worked with the staff to change the perception. We want to be nice to people and give them a gift bag. No, your gift is excellent care. That's the kind of nurse you are. They thought they were being nice, examining a baby right away, or wrapping them up in a warm blanket. And no, what's really nice is putting the baby skin to skin so all these things can happen and so forth. So very, very fun to think how you put it together. Rally the herd. Human behavior is contagious. And we need regular meetings to celebrate what's working. I mentioned the Golden Breast Award. I didn't know they were called potty. What are they again?
Potty pearls.
Potty pearls. So I've seen educational materials everywhere in the nurses' locker room, the break room, all over the unit. but that constant reminder that we're learning something new. And then rally the herd by coming to a group like this. And learn what others are doing and realizing the journey isn't alone and that we're going to copy one another's behavior. That's one of the learning sessions for the Best Fed Beginnings gathering, where 30 hospitals sent 4 or 5 people each and had all their displays and people sharing all their knowledge. But that kind of thing makes the whole journey contagious, and that we identified them. So in summary, we're going to direct the rider, motivate the elephant, shape the path, and get to the baby-friendly destination. So I hope some of this would be helpful. You can incorporate your own issues, but if you think in those three, in that 3-part framework, I think it might be helpful to you. It certainly, I felt it was very helpful to me. So thank you.
So we had someone who was going to come down and welcome you, and I haven't seen him yet. So what I'm thinking is, what I'd like to do, so that you're not all trying to check off your group here, just show of hands. What, can you count people for me? Let's do this while we get